present in a professional, powerful manner. And then by the time we ask for the signature, they've built up that confidence in saying yes.
Right. We make it so easy for them to say yes. Because at this point, we already did the convincing part.
I mean, wouldn't you want the most aggressive realtor to be representing you so that you can make the most amount of money?
Welcome back to the Millionaire Coach Podcast, where we are talking life, real estate, and making millionaires. I am your co-host, Lisette Sabrina, and
I'm Robert Villanueva.
And we're going to jump right into it, but we do want to share some exciting news. So, of course, we've mentioned that we are life partners, business partners, and we just took it to a whole other level. So, Robert has decided to make me a fiance. And so we are engaged. Do you want to share anything about that?
I mean, basically just getting on the one knee and, why not? I mean, let's just do this thing. We're making a life with each other and has been nothing but pure joy, absolute bliss, and absolute, blessing of God and bringing us together. And, so just wanted to share with the audience as you guys are coming along in the journey with us. And, I want to share that. So super excited. We don't necessarily have kind of a date yet, but we do have a vicinity. So depending on when you watch this, we could be already married or for that matter, coming into the actual wedding. So we're shooting for what again?
Yeah. Well, now we actually have a season. Yeah, so we're shooting for fall of 2027.
Yeah.
But we did go to a wedding expo, which was just a very eye-opening experience for myself. I mean, for you too, I'm sure. But we don't know what we don't know. We didn't know what we thought we didn't need. We didn't know. So we just showed up and they had a bunch of vendors and all that stuff and asking us questions as to when and where. And we're like, we don't even know yet. So now that we're getting that prepared, let's go into it. So we are going to be talking about becoming a powerful presenter, which is extremely important, I think, in any industry, really, because we are all in the business of selling ourselves, selling, our products, our services. So we need to become a powerful presenter to whenever we have to be prepared for this moment. So let's set the foundation for it. What's the real job of a listing presentation?
The most important thing when it comes time to becoming a powerful presenter, going back to the keyword listing, the most successful realtor, since we're on the topic of specifically with realtors, is being that listing agent. And the most successful listing agents are going to be right in that 70%, 30%, 80, 20%, meaning 70 or 80% of them being listings, 20, 30% of them being, in a sense, buyers. Now, going out, and I say this with all due respect, because of course there's hard work on both sides of it, but going out and showing a home from a buyer's perspective, it's literally one of the hardest jobs is the coordinating of showings, opening up the lockbox, opening up the door and saying, do you like it? Whereas on the listing side, it's a little bit different because you do have to present, you do have to showcase, in a sense, your talent. And in some cases, you're going to up against multiple presenters or realtors. So being in a position where understanding this, it's going to require a little bit of a different level of skill. And again, that's the reason why the most elite, successful realtors lead with listings.
Right. Yeah. And listings is where you want to be. And so why, though? Why do most agents leave without getting that signature?
It goes back to skill. Most of the times what ends up happening with a listing agent, they go out, they present, and if I'm presenting to you, the novice agent is going to sit there and say, well, Lisette, I'm a great agent. I, can do really well. Here's what your home is worth. And put me to work. And a large percentage of the time, the response is, well, let me think it over. And again, the novice agent is going to say, sure, okay, well then I guess I'll check back, right? Well, the most experienced agent isn't going to take that approach because the most experienced, the elite, when we present, we don't present on us because you could care less. I mean, there might be a little bit of our resume, but it's about you. It's about your motivation. What is it that you're wanting to accomplish? We've talked about this in other episodes, that the more I focus on you, your wants, your needs, your desires, allows me the opportunity to become a more powerful, in a sense, closer. Because now you understand that the entire presentation, whether that be 15, 20, or 30 minutes, that it's about you. So when I do go for the signature or for the close, it's a little bit easier for you to accept. And for that matter, if you say, as an example, you want to think about it, ideally a more seasoned, skilled professional is going to be able to have a variation to closes. So, and we've talked about pre-qualification because that is a big, big part to becoming a powerful presenter. So pre-qual, if you haven't watched the episode, you got to go back and watch the pre-qualification because that ties into with what we're talking about.
Yeah. I guess if I were to put a percentage of the amount of preparation that you go into a listing appointment, what would be that percentage from preparing to presenting? What does that look like?
Yeah, preparing is probably the biggest part because in the preparing, it's the pre-qualification, going through, asking a series of 8, 10, 12, 15 questions, getting to know what it is that you want, what do you want to accomplish, your motivation, all of those things. And then also the pre-listing packet and or listing packet. And in that packet, we want to be able to have the information that they're wanting. And in most cases, sellers want to know 3 things. And the 3 things is, number 1 is how quickly can we do this? Number 2 is how much money am I going to make? And number 3, what is it that you're going to do to get my home sold? So when you are in a position to be able to showcase that, it puts you at a completely different position. But just to make sure, answering the question, the preparation, the pre-qualification is the heaviest weight. Because by the time I get to the presentation, I've already pre-qualified you. I've asked you the questions. I know your motivation. And then when I go to present, it's now just about everything we just talked about in the pre-qualification and what I'm going to do.
Yeah. And now that you're on the pre-qualifying, how does that change the entire presentation?
Entirely. Because in the pre-qualification, now I know what it is that motivates you. What is it that potentially any objections? What are some hurdles? What is your timeframes? All of those things. If I don't pre-qualify you, I'm going in there blindly. I'm going in there in terms of rolling the dice. And that rolling that dice is simply, here's the information. And what do you think? Oh, timing is wrong. Okay, got it. Your motivation is not that high. Okay, got it. You're going to interview other realtors. Okay, got it. So it doesn't allow for a strong presentation. Whereas going back to when you have the pre-qualification questions answered, I can cater that presentation more towards with what you want to accomplish. Lisette, you mentioned to me that your goal is to get over to San Diego, and you're wanting to enjoy that because of the weather. And right now in the summer, wouldn't you want to enjoy that now versus waiting 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months from now, which is in the winter or so on and so forth. So it allows me the opportunity to better present.
Right. Yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense. I mean, it's best to know, I know you've said it in the past too, it's best to know the answers to the test before you even walk in.
Yeah.
And that makes a lot of sense. So let's go back into mindset, because mindset's a huge thing also that plays a role in this. Because if you're already doubting yourself from the beginning, it's already showing right at the presentation. So what is the mindset of an agent who expects to walk out with that listing?
When you go in there, you already pre-qualified. You know their motivation. You know, going back to the answer to the test, which is basically any potential objections, whether that be interviewing multiple realtors, or considering on selling it themselves, or not want to pay X amount of commission, they're not wanting to sign X amount of time on a contract, all of these, in a sense, things. So now it allows us the opportunity to become a lot more confident in going into that presentation. And when I go in there with that confidence, now I just, when we walk in, let me back up for a second. When we walk into the door, most of the time, the clients already know that they want to sign a contract with us. They're about that 80th, 90th, 95th percentile that, yes, I'm going to hire Robert as that realtor. Then we show up, and when we show up, that 95%, if I don't do a good job of presenting, becomes 90%, 80%, 50%, and all of a sudden they go, let me think about it, right? Because I didn't showcase the 3 things. So, and when you have that confidence, you can exude that and say, yes, this is the person that we want in our corner to represent us.
Yeah. It's funny, as you're saying that, I'm thinking of like dating. Like whenever somebody asks you, well, obviously, like just as an example, when someone asks you on a date, like you already know if you want to go on a date or you don't want to go on a date, but now it's like up to that person to take you on to that second date, or you know what, I'm okay. Like without,
Yeah.
So they either talk you out of the date, out of a second date, or they talk you into going into another, or not dating at all.
Yeah. Well,
So
good thing we don't have to worry about that anymore.
No, we don't. But I'm like, it kind of makes sense. It's like a little.
But let me tie into that, because that is important. Because a lot of times you end up, going on a date because it's like, yeah, she's attractive. It's like, she sounds the part, so on and so forth. And all of a sudden you go through, you have coffee, you have, a drink, you have dinner, you have lunch, whatever it may be. And all of a sudden you're like, this is not the person, right? And it's the same thing, And then at the end, it's kind of like, I'd love to see you again. And it's like, no, I'm good. Same thing with the sellers.
Okay, so now we talked about the preparation, the mindset, everything that leads up to this presentation, the closing. What is the ideal structure of a powerful listing presentation?
Well, number one is having your script at the ready. And one of the things that I learned way early on, because, I come from, again, the Mike Ferry tutelage, and we had all of this very scripted presentation. And when I started early on, I tried memorizing it. I was investing 4 to 6 hours a day, but it was so long and I just could not, no matter what. And I would find myself constantly veering back to the direction of Robert's way. And of course, the listing appointment, listing taken ratio, I wasn't getting the results that I wanted. I was getting better. But I wasn't getting the results that I wanted. Early on, I'd go on 10 appointments, without the presentation, I'd get 3, maybe lucky 4 out of 10. But as I started to incorporate the script, I started getting a little bit better results, 4 out of 10, 5 out of 10. But it wasn't until I literally printed the script and I showed up and I said, Lisette, I prepared some notes in advance. Do you mind if I reference to them? And I would put them on the table. I'd have first page and the second page, and I'd have checkboxes that I would literally just go through and just check them off. And why would I do that? Is because, again, there's 4 different personality styles that we'll break down on a separate episode. But it started to allow me the opportunity to cater to different personality styles. I was doing a great job of presenting, getting to the point, getting contracts signed with people that were just like me. But the people that weren't just like me, I struggled. And I struggled early on because I wasn't speaking your language. I was bulldozing you. I was just going right for the kill, right for the throw. And the people that are like me, they're like, yeah, we appreciate that because we want a person like that on our side. But the people that, going back to the amiables or the expressives, that would pull me completely away from the presentation, I wasn't quite effective. So once I put them, on company letterhead, and I literally just checked them off, it allowed me the opportunity to be more effective, and for that matter, even more efficient. So that really helped me become a better presenter.
Let's talk about how you lead the appointment instead of letting the seller run it.
Absolutely. Because a lot of times what ends up happening when you have some very strong personalities from sellers at times. Sometimes it's kind of like, tell me with what we need to do. But there are times where you have these people that, in a sense, bulldoze you. And when you don't act like the professional, sometimes it can get away. I mean, think about it. If you went to the doctor and you sat there and said, hey, doc, my head hurts. I need you to clear your schedule because I need brain surgery. Well, the doctor's not going to let you do that. The doctor's going to say, hold on. I'm the professional, and let's go through diagnosis because we're not going to have brain surgery. Let's go through, let's diagnose, let's identify with what the issue is at hand, and then we can go ahead and address it, and I'll determine whether you're going to need brain surgery or not, or heck, maybe just 2 Tylenols, and that's it. So the same thing when it comes time to on the listing side of things, what we want to do is we do want to take control. And how do we take control is we do listen to what they're saying. I hear what you're saying, Lisette. However, as a professional, if I may, I'd like to get back to the presentation. Your point is valid. However, in order for us to get to with what it is that you want, we need to get through the entire presentation. And I promised you that we were going to go through this as efficiently as we possibly can. So as long as you're in a position where you're taking control and you show them that position of authority, because if they take control right at the listing presentation, just imagine what that's going to be like for the next 30, 60, 90, or 6 months of working with them. It's going to be absolute chaos, and probably even worse because they build up that confidence as it goes over time. I'm not talking about being disrespectful. I'm just talking about being the person of authority. That's what they're, in a sense, hiring us for, to to take control and, of course, get the results.
Mm-hmm. Now let's talk about commissions, because of course this is a topic that does come up at the closing table. How do you communicate value so that commission stops being the focus?
Well, part of it is not necessarily communicating in terms vocally with words. It's going back to where we just came from, is showing that professionalism. When you come across, you have the confidence and you present the way you're supposed to as a professional. The only time that they actually question our commission, and you see some of the deals that we've done of recent, they don't really, in a sense, question it. There might be a little bit of, how much are you charging? What am I netting? All that other, from that perspective. When you're presenting powerfully, it doesn't necessarily come up. It's when you're presenting weak is where it does show up on the occasion. Now, there are going to be some people, that's probably the outliers, that's the 10%ers, where it's they want the discount. And no matter how strong you present, they just want to hear discount. So in that, you just have to be prepared. And that goes back to the pre-qualification. When you pre-qualify, I would venture to say 90% of those people that we're talking about, they are going to be the people that ask, how much are you going to charge me? What is it that you charge? Anything from that perspective. And now going back to having the answers to the test, now I know that I need to address that powerfully within the presentation. And I'm going to say things along the line of, Lisette, do I have your permission to tell you the truth and nothing but the truth? Because there are other agents that are going to tell you with what you want to hear versus what you need to hear. Because in order for you to get over to San Diego, what we need to do is I need to make sure I share with you the truth. Do I have your permission? Yeah, I guess. And now I can sit there and say, look, and go into my powerful presentation or making my points across without making you feel stupid, but I do it in a professional manner.
Mm-hmm. And I like that question a lot, because then at that point we get their permission to be direct, or a little bit more direct, because that way once we get that permission, then we're okay. Now we're rolling, Yeah. But without that, it becomes like, okay, now it's becoming too direct, or they may not like that approach. But once we get that permission, it seems to be more of a smooth sail.
Let me add to that here real quick, because in the term direct, it can come across from a different perspective. It's not being rude, and that's not what you're saying, but sometimes the audience can hear that. It's not about being rude or a tone. If anything, it's just more of just, I'm going to share with you what it takes in order to get this property sold. Perfect example, the deal that we just opened escrow on, they were with another agent, and that agent did get the job done to get it sold. And we did have to tell them, look, that price didn't work. I could tell you we're going to put it back on the market. We're going to do all kinds of marketing. We're going to do all kinds of everything. But that price does not work. If you want to get this home sold, we need to price it closer to here, and very likely even closer to here. Which the ironies of that, after going through the wait period and all that other stuff, it literally sold for the price that we talked about almost, 3, 4, 5 months ago when we originally had the conversation. So that's the part where, if we don't put ourselves in that position and we don't tell them the truth, we're just wasting their time. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And even then, as we took that listing, they were just filling it. We were so close to getting, offers. We even got verbal offers, but it just didn't come together. And of course they got disappointed, a little discouraged, but thankfully now, after stern conversation, we're back, as a pended position. So back in escrow.
Yeah. Yeah, and those types of sellers, they were in, they needed help. Yep. They do need help, and so at that point, it just didn't work the way that they were doing it. So yeah. I'm glad that we were able to help them and move forward.
Yeah, and it's not about taking advantage of them. It's just simply about telling them the truth about what it's going to take to get the property sold. Because of course, our job is to make the most amount of money. But it's got to be under the realistic terms. And we did. Even when we got the initial offer, it was even $15,000 less than where we're at now. And the fact that we were able to negotiate to a more realistic term, at least that difference from where we started and they ended up, it wasn't this much of a difference. It was a little bit lesser of a difference.
Now, going from, all right, preparation, now you're at the presentation, you're there in their home. How do you build trust quickly in someone's living room? How do you build that trust so quickly within that time frame?
It's the process and the system. That's how you build trust. It isn't the words that we use, because words are just words. Of course, words are powerful. But if you're using just words, you don't show any sort of systems, any sort of organization, any sort of professionalism. At the end of the day, it's not going to be, it's not going to work. You have to show them from the very, very beginning, from the time that we set an appointment, we go through the pre-qualification, we prepare a pre-listing package, we present in a professional, powerful manner. And then by the time we ask for the signature, they've built up that confidence in saying, yes, this is the person.
Right. We make it so easy for them to say yes. Because at this point, we already did the convincing part for the majority. And then finally, here we are.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's go into pricing, because right now the market is wild. We have homes that are sitting 30, 60 plus days on the market. And then we also have homes that are just flying off the shelf within a week with multiple offers. So we're just kind of in this price adjustment type of market. How do you price a property with the seller and not against them?
Well, it is important that you go through, as everything we've talked about in the pre-qualification, we go through, we identify with what it is, the price that you're wanting. I get a little bit of a picture. And one of the common phrases that we get today is Zillow says, and they fill in the blank, 473, 532, whatever that number ends up being. So at least I have a ballpark. I'm also going to ask you a follow-up question. And the follow-up question is, what's the price you wouldn't want to go below? So now at least I have a range of where you're at mentally. That also allows me the opportunity from an agent's perspective. If that is unrealistic, I'm not going to waste my time. If you're $50,000, $100,000 above, I'm not going to waste my time. However, if you're within that reality of where I'd like to be at price-wise, I'm going to pull up the comps. My job is to go in there, present based on your motivation, based on with what it is that you're wanting to go into. But the moment that I go into pricing is concerned, my job is to make sure that I'm showcasing where you should be at. And one of the questions I always ask is do I have your permission to tell you the truth and nothing but the truth? Because in that, I'm not going to tell you with what you want to hear. I'm going to tell you with what you need to hear. And as we're going through the comparables, let's say as an example, you tell me 500,000 is the what you had told me over the phone the day before. Well, now I have comparables, and the very first comparable is this one at 475, but it's been on the market for 90 days. And well, that's not working.
Yeah.
We got a second comparable. That one's at 460, and that one's been on the market for 60 days. So that's not working. Now I'm painting a picture for you. And ideally, by the time I'm all said and done, I'm now sitting there saying, Lisette, what price do you feel we should use? And if you sit there and say, well, I still want 500,000. I get that. So do I. Here's the problem is we have the two comparables that have already proven that doesn't work. Remember, we talked earlier about having your permission to tell you the truth and nothing but the truth. This is where I have to share with you. This is not going to work. But either way, I'm not going to give you the price, because my job is to make sure I give you the opportunity to give me the price. So now you go through. All right, Robert, I see with what you're saying. I understand where you're coming from. Can we at least try 475? Well, now at least we're within reality. And that gives me the opportunity now to be able to say, let's give it a shot for 2 weeks. However, if in case the property doesn't sell in that time frame, we need to be prepared to go to plan B. And now I'm giving the price. And that price that I'm giving you, doesn't matter whether it's up market or down market, because we've all been there, done that, where we take that listing and it's like, yes, this thing's going to go pended, in the next 3 days. And then 30, 60 days, you're like, what the heck's going on? So I always want to be prepared, whether it's an up market or a down market, going back to, I'm going to give you my price. And that price that I give you, plan B, will always be my first price reduction. So now you're under the impression that we're going with a price that is a little bit more realistic. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But we're also prepared to go to plan B, and that's going into that first price reduction. And in today's market, I mean, literally the last two deals that we penned did, one sold in 2 days, and the other one sold in almost 4 months. So a perfect example of what you just mentioned. So we never, ever know how it's going to come together.
Yeah. Well, I just want to hang on to two golden nuggets that I think would help a lot of agents. So number one is what you mentioned was throwing it back to the seller. So let's paint the picture. This is, pretty much showing them the comps, giving them the explanation. But at the end, seller, what do you think that, what price do you think that we need to be at? and just throwing it back in their court, because then that relieves you from having that responsibility or having that, how would I say, maybe liability, that if that's not the selling price, like you're not tied to that. The seller decided that. And that's really important that I've learned is throw it back to them, because I know that even whenever a seller does come back to you and they're like, well, I don't know, you tell me. There's a way that Robert, he just finesses it back to the seller and is like, then the seller ends up giving the price. Like he finesses it that way.
Well, let's talk a little bit about why, because that's important that the audience understands. The reason I don't want to be the first person that picks the price, my little saying is, a person who picks first is the one that loses. Because if I give you that price of $475 and the property doesn't sell over the week or 2 weeks or a month or 2 months, guess who's now responsible? Going back to liability in a sense you're talking about. Now I'm the person. Now the seller's sitting there saying, well, you pick the price. You're the one that put it at the price here. And even though I was agreeing with you initially, I agreed with you to a certain extent, because that first price in the first example, $475, yeah, I don't know. There's no realtor or expert that's going to sit there and say that it's going to sell exactly at this price. And in that, if it sells, great, awesome, we both win. However, if it doesn't sell, now I'm prepared, and now I'm giving you the price that I feel is going to be closer to sell at. Now, the price reductions, that's another key point as well, is that we're not going to do the cute little 3,000, 5,000, 1%, 2%. It's always going to be 5% of a reduction, because you have to be able to make a significant change to attract a different audience. Because if you go from 475 to 472, that doesn't change anything. From 475 even to 465, that's not enough. So you want to be in a position where you're making a significant amount of an adjustment. And even if I've seen it, been there, done that, where I go from 475 to that 5% to 450 as an example. And all of a sudden, boom, at 450, 2 weeks later, now we have 2, 3, 5 offers. And then we end up in escrow, or now pended for non-escrow states. We're now at 470, 472, almost 475, back to the original price, because we created that environment.
Yeah, that was the second golden nugget, is that you pretty much set the price reduction there at the listing appointment. And not a lot of agents do that. I know that because now, now they're finding themselves a few weeks later having to readdress the seller and saying, hey guys, like we gotta readdress this price. And that doesn't make the agent look good. Like it doesn't highlight any skills there. Yeah. But it does. It sets the table there, literally at the table, with the seller, and setting those expectations. And I think that's such a strong aspect to include in your business, because that's putting the seller on your team. Yeah. So they're like, all right, we're on the same page. We're towards the same goal. We're gonna try it your way. But if in case it doesn't work, then let's go my direction. And then at least, all right, now we have an agreement. I know that we bring a price reduction addendum already with us, and so we're pretty much already getting them to agree at that table. Yeah. The
other thing too is that in that the seller feels as if though they've had some sort of a win within that, and I don't want to take it away from them. I'm not sitting here trying to say that be sneaky. That's not what I'm getting at. It's just being prepared. The other seller, trying to of course leave names out of it, but the other seller, we started at a certain price, and when we went later on, Mr. Seller, investor, we tried it at that price, and we came close. We got a couple of potential bites. However, we're just not there. We now have to make that adjustment. And that conversation is way easier to be had at that point, because now we tried it at your price. Now let's try it at my price. So it's going to happen sometimes.
Now we're going to go into the closing and handling objections. Now, how and when do you ask for the signature?
pretty much after the price. So I'll go through, Lisette, what price you feel we should use in order to get someone to buy your home versus the competition. We get to the example we just went through, $475. Be prepared to go to plan B. And then the moment that we go to the, are we in agreement? And you say, yeah, that sounds good. Okay, perfect. Now I'm going to move over to the net sheet. And in the net sheet, that's the part where I'll sit there and say, based on $475, you owe X amount, because I asked you that in the pre-qualification. This is a rough estimate. And again, it's a rough estimate because we don't know what the offer is going to look like, is with what you're going to net. And under my example, plan B is going to be like such. If I can net you something in this window, would you be okay with that? Yeah, of course we want more of that number. So would I. And that's what I ideally would like to do for you and your family. Lisette, let's just get the process started. Go ahead and do me a favor, sign right there, and that's where I close. So basically, it's getting a price, showing with what they're going to net, and then I get them to sign on the net sheet. I will always close on the net sheet first, and then I'll jump over to the listing contract.
Got it. Now, how do you handle, we want to think about it?
Yeah, that's a common thing. And again, the novice agent's going to sit there and say, okay, why don't you think about it? How long are you going to take? Okay, I'll check back with you, so on and so forth. But of course, the more experienced agent's going to sit there and say, Lisette, I completely understand. It is a big decision. But let's think out loud. Two minds are better than one. What is it that you're thinking about? And then we get some sort of, it's a family policy, we just want to think it over, so on and so forth. I can go in so many different directions because, again, of my level of expertise, but I usually go right into my isolation close. And my isolation close is as follows. Lisette, in this process, I lost you somewhere, and I got to take a minute to apologize to you. And you're probably like, huh? What do you mean apologize to me? Well, yeah, because yesterday when I asked you in our pre-qualification, if what I say makes sense, you feel comfortable and confident, are you planning to hire me as your agent? And you sat there and said, yes. So I'm a little bit confused. In the last 20 minutes that I presented to you, I lost you somewhere. And in losing you in that presentation, is it the price that we don't agree on? No, I'm okay with the price. Is it the terms, whether it be the commission or the length of the contract, whatever it may be? No, I'm pretty okay with that. Well, the next logical thing, Lisette, is probably me. Is there something I've done and or said? Well, you know what? It's just kind of family policy. We want to think it over, so on and so forth. And I could sit there again, go in so many different directions. My typical is, Lisette, I get it. I completely understand. And now I go back into the motivation. Now, your goal is to get to, I do a 3-yes close now. Your goal is to get to over to San Diego, correct? And you also mentioned that you wanted to be there by the end of the year. Is that correct? And you're okay with the price that you were wanting. Is that correct? Lisette, sounds like everything you need to think about is already there. All we need to do now, simply sign the agreement. And I'll get you guys over to San Diego before the year is over. Isn't that what you're wanting? Perfect. Go ahead and sign the contract. And if there's still resistance, which can happen sometimes, at that point in time, I'll do the, let's sign the contract now that I'm here. Let's go over it. And then what we'll do is you'll call me in the morning and you tell me yes. And if you say yes, great, we continue to move forward. If you tell me no, I'm just going to simply rip up the contract. And if you say, well, again, furthering down that objection handling, you now say, I'm just not really comfortable with you taking the contract. Okay, let's do this. Let's sign the contract. I'm already here. Let's go ahead and review all of the information, and I'll leave you the contract. And now you're in possession of it. This gives me the opportunity to take advantage now that I'm here. And then that way tomorrow when you say yes, I'll come by, pick it up. So I can go through close, which is what most powerful presenters from time to time will do versus just simply thinking it over.
Mm-hmm. Yep. How would you handle the question of, will you cut your commission?
I don't do that. I'm sorry. Any other questions? Let's role play that. Yeah.
Will you cut your commission?
I'm sorry. I won't do that. Any other questions?
That was my question.
Yeah. So again, being powerful, authoritative. And then sometimes they'll sit there and say, as an example, well, the other agent said they would. Yeah, I completely understand that. Lisette, can I share with you why that makes me a little bit nervous, by the way? Mm-hmm. Let's role play that.
Well, yeah, the other agent said they would.
I completely understand that. Can I share with you why that makes me a little bit nervous?
Sure.
Yeah. Well, see, here's the thing, Lisette, is that as far as the commission is concerned and their discounting, did they offer that or did you ask for it?
Yeah, they offered that.
Wow. Okay. So they're already giving up on themselves and their commission. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So here's the part that makes me nervous. If they've already given up on themselves, their commission, that's the money that they put gas in their car, food on their table, and that's basically, in a sense, how they run their business. How strong do you possibly think they're going to be in defending you and your money? Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. If they already give up on their money, I mean, what are they going to do different to defend you and your money? I mean, wouldn't you want the most aggressive realtor to be representing you so that you can make the most amount of money? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely understand that. Lisette, I have that courage. Just imagine when you hire me, what I'm going to be doing for any potential buyers that come in. I'm going to squeeze out every last possible dime that I can out of them. I'm just simply asking for a fair commission. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Perfect. Yeah. Let's go ahead and do the right thing. Let's go ahead and sign the contract.
There we go. All right. Well, let's wrap this up. We're going to head on to our next episode. So be sure to catch that. Now, any last words?
No, absolutely. So again, just wanted to say thank you to the audience that continue to tune in and, continuing on this journey with us. If you're wanting more information about coaching or you're wanting more information about anything from any perspective, go to our website, therobertvillanueva.com. And the best thing you can do is like, subscribe, and of course, send it over, share it with other people. So I really appreciate it. And most importantly, saying thank you to my co-host and, of course, my now fiance. So thank you guys.
See you on the next one.